this. So I'm recording this specifically so I can have my branch managers watch it and they know how to teach it. But if you remember from the interview, we talked about this a little bit, how there's no quota, but we're not unstructured, right? And we talked a little bit about the structure. So hopefully this rings some bells, even though for some of you guys, it's been a week since you've heard it. But typically, our part-time representatives do 2 to 3 appointments per day on the days they're working. Most part-timers are working 4 days a week. So they're doing about 10 total for the week, right? Mm-hmm. What I want to add to that, and this is going to be like your work schedule, is what we call do 2, set 2. Okay, so if you look on the screen, if you do 2 appointments in a day, you also schedule 2 appointments in a day. Okay, what that means is that you put in your dollar signs and you schedule 45 minutes to make phone calls with a goal of booking 2 appointments. Does that make sense? So if you do 2, you also set 2. We do that because the biggest mistake a lot of reps make is that they come in on Monday and they make phone calls in the office, they book appointments, but they've only got like Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe Thursday lined up. And then they come in on Wednesday night for the team meeting and they're like, I need to book every single appointment slot for the weekend. And it's a lot. It's a lot to ask, right? But if you do 2 appointments and you book 2 on Monday, and then you do 2 and you set 2 on Tuesday, and then you do 2 and you set 2 on Wednesday, you're coming in on Wednesday night, you already have 6 appointments lined up for the weekend. And it's so much easier to come in on Wednesday and just have to finish booking your schedule than it is to have to book every single appointment slot in one shot at it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So do 2, set 2. Here's the cool thing. If you do this 4 days a week, you take a 3-day vacation every week, or you give yourself Saturday and Sunday and Tuesday off every week, you'll sell $6,000 for the month and you'll make $1,000 and get to 25%, which if you recall is where you're now overpaid. You're paid more than you're worth. Is that kind of cool?
Yeah.
Right. So that's the do 2, set 2. Now, there are some people that look at that and they're like, that's awesome. But man, I do 2, set 2. It's like, that's not nearly as much as I want to work. Right? The do 3, set 3 is about 4 to 5 hours of work a day. So that's a pretty standard part-time job, right? And if you do 3, set 3, you'll end up selling you'll sell 10,000. You'll hit dirty 30 in the first month on the job, and you'll make $2,000 in your first month and be at dirty 30 going forward. And if you do that, you schedule 3 appointments and you schedule an hour of phone time for the day with a goal of booking 3. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
I would say, in my opinion, 2 to 3 appointments a day, the do 2, set 2, do 3, set 3. I would say those are both part-time because they're 5 hours or less of work per day, right? In my opinion, do 4, set 4, do 5, set 5, that's more like a full-time job because now you're looking at 6 to 8 hours of work a day. Okay, so do 4, set 4. If you do that 4 days a week, and I said this in the interview, most full-timers work 5 days a week, but I just crunched the numbers based on 4. But if you do 4, set 4, you work 4 days a week, you'll sell $15,000. The key to that, though, is that you need an hour and a half for phone calls. So most people who do 4, set 4, they put 45 minutes of phone calls before their first appointment, and then they put 45 minutes of phone calls after their last appointment. And then they just have a full work day that starts and ends with booking appointments and appointments in the middle. Does that make sense? If you do that, you'll sell $15,000. You'll earn $3,500 in your first month on the job. And then if you do 5, set 5, same exact deal. I crunched the numbers based on 4 days. Most full-timers work 5 days. But if you did it 4 days a week, you'd sell $20,000. You'd make $5,000 in your first month. And you'd also get your first bonus check at the end of the month. Right? And to do that, it does take 2 hours of phone calls. So that's 5 appointments, and then an hour of phone calls in the beginning, an hour of phone calls in the end. And that's about an 8-hour workday. Does that make sense? Now, just so you guys are aware, this is the structure. Mm-hmm. And I do have a lot of people that pick one. They're like, that's my one. And then they pick the days they're going to work. And on the days they're going to work, what the hell? That's on the recording. Either way, so
What happened?
I won't say what happened because the video is not on the recording, and that would not make Chantel happy. But it was hilarious. Anyway, it was a good time. If you're watching the recording, feel free to ask me. I won't tell you, but it's hilarious. Anyway, I've had people who are like, that's my one. And then they just pick their days to work. They put in the appropriate amount of dollar signs and phone calls, and they're golden. I have some people who were like, man, the do 3, set 3, that's kind of my jam most days. But I could pick one day to do 5, set 5. Does that make sense? You get some freedom, right? The most important thing is you kind of pick your number, and then you also make sure that every day that you're doing appointments, you also schedule time for phone calls.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is give you a couple minutes, take your schedule, look at your availability, and put in your dollar signs and your phone times. And at the bottom of each day, just put your target. All right. The only difference is on Thursday, you put your target, just how many appointments. This time, I want you to put your target, do 2, set 2, do 3, set 3, do 4, set 4. You guys get what I'm looking for?
Yeah.